Hey guys, welcome to That's Crazy Podcast. I'm your host, Valeria, and this is a safe space. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything lifestyle, mom life, childhood traumas, advice, lifestyle, beauty, everything. Just everything about everything. We're not sticking to one specific subject in this podcast. We're just going to talk about whatever we feel like talking about that day. So if you guys want to keep listening and enjoying this podcast, please subscribe, like, share, comment, leave suggestions for us to talk about, and I will really appreciate that. So let's get started on today's first episode. It's my first episode ever, and I decided to call it That's Crazy Podcast because whenever somebody's telling me a story, I'm always like, oh, like, that's crazy, or, I'm always like, that's crazy, and stuff like that, because I'm not a very social person. I'm not, like, very talkative, and when people are telling me, like, stories or traumas, I'm not, like, I don't know what to say, honestly. So my response usually is always like, oh, that's crazy, or like, wow, that's cool, or, so we're calling it That's Crazy Podcast because that's crazy. So for starters, my name is Valeria, and we're doing this solo, and it's just an idea that came up to me just like a couple days ago. I was like, you know what? I have a lot of stories, and obviously I'm not going to get too deep into it or too personal, but I mean, I would love to share some experiences and hear your guys', stories as well. So this is a safe space. We're not judging anybody. We're not talking no smack about anybody. We're just, hearing each other out. And yeah, and if you're not going to, keep this a safe space and get out of here. Nobody likes you. So in today's episode, I thought we would talk about sisters, sister bond, sisterhood, sisters, like blood sisters. I know there's like girls that are like, oh, like, that's my best friend. She's my sister. She's like my sister. And they're literally just friends that they met from high school or whatever. I have never been a believer in calling friends family ever, like ever. Now, it's different, obviously, like when you call like your in-laws sisters, because literally you're, marrying into that family and you're spending like so much time with these, people, then you're actually sharing family experiences, which is completely different. And that I understand because I do have sister-in-laws that I consider, like my sisters. But I'm saying like, oh, I met this girl in high school. She's my sister. I call her my sister. Or, oh, I met this girl, I call her my cousin because we're just so close, or we've been friends for this long. Like, no, that has never been a thing with me. Like, I honestly don't go by that. If you do, cool, you do you. But honestly, friendships never last. That's my opinion. I feel like people put in so much effort in friendships and they forget that, that's not your family. At the end of the day, that's really not your blood family. And that person will most likely choose their actual family over you in a heartbeat, and you're left in the dust. But that's a different topic for a different day. Today we're talking about sisters, literally blood sisters. So if you want to talk about that, though, leave a comment below and we will get back at talking about how people refer to friends as their family and, things go south. But in today's episode, we'll be talking about actual sisters. So I have one sister, just one. She is much older than me. She is, I don't know if she wants me to say her age. I am 26 years old, and she is 40, 41. She's 40 or 41 years old, right? So, there is definitely an age gap there. But, she's my best friend. Like, we talk like there's a 5-year age gap there. Like, she's my best friend. Like, there's, she's not a 40-year-old. She's not a 40-year-old old lady, She's a 40-year-old young sister, in my opinion. But obviously we met. She's my sister. Growing up, I honestly don't ever remember living with my sister, like actually living in the same home with my sister, because my memories go as far back as like 4-ish years old, 3 or 4 years old, I would say. And she already didn't live with me. I think at that age is when she actually moved out, and she went to live in LA, which was like an hour, almost 2 hours away from where we were living. And at the moment we were living in Phelan, California. It's lonely as hell, nothing there, and she moved to LA. So that is as far as my memories go back. That's like my first memory of living in a home, is living in Phelan, California. That's where like my life kind of starts in my head. So she didn't live with me. I just remember living with my mom, my dad, and my 2 brothers. And then I would see her every so often. Like, she would just pop up every so often to visit. And as I got older, I started to recognize, why she had left. And, why she had left. And, I knew that she was going to come around every so often to visit, but it never registered with me that it wasn't normal to not live with your sister. I guess, I don't know, like, it never was like, oh, I don't live with my sister. Like, it was just like a normal, like, oh yeah, my sister doesn't live with me. Like, that's normal. She's an adult. When you're an adult, you move out and you start your own life, right? But my brothers were adults, and they, obviously they were young adults, but, they were at home. So I kind of didn't understand that, why, but, I didn't really think too much of it. I just knew my sister didn't live with us. But I did know that, a lot of the things that I had were because of my sister. So, I knew that she was providing for us, and, she obviously didn't have to do that. And, so she was like a mom to me in a way. When we would go out to the store together, people would always ask if she was my mom and if my mom was my grandma, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, so I didn't grow up living with my sister, so I feel like that kind of affected having that bond. And we've talked about this before in the past, me and her, on how she felt like she had a certain bond with me when I was younger, and for me was the opposite. I feel like I grew a stronger bond with her as I got older, as I became like an adult per se. I feel like the bond with her got much stronger because, when I was, younger, I feel like she was always kind of, taking care of me, making sure I had what I needed, making sure I was going to the right path, And, I was still very young, but there was, people, there's always people that are trying to throw you off and do malicious things and whatever. And she was always there to kind of talk to me and guide me in the right direction. And I honestly, to this day, I'm so thankful for the way that she would, the thoughts that she put into my head at such a young age that molded me to the person that I am morally today, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Like, I know, like, your parents tell you, don't do this, don't do drugs, don't be a whore, don't have sex, you're gonna get pregnant, all that stuff. Your parents tell you that, and whatever. I guess every parent should, or most parents do tell you that, and your siblings tell you that. But when the way she would tell me and the way that she was on me, I mean, at the time, it kind of was like, oh my God, like, she's always thinking I'm doing something wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, why is she always, like, after me? Why is she always on me about this? Like, but obviously, you're young and you don't know why, you don't understand. But obviously, now that I am an adult and who I am today, I completely understand, and I am honestly so thankful because of the person that I am today, if that makes any sense. But anyways, backtracking, moved out, whatever. I'm growing up with 2 brothers, my parents. I see her every so often. When I see her, I'm super excited. Sometimes she takes me over there where, she's at, and I, spend the night. She spoils me. She brings me back home, and then whatever. Then comes a point where she gets pregnant. She gets pregnant with her first baby. And honestly, that kind of breaks my heart. Like, I know it's so childish and so immature and, like, so, like, really annoying. But it wasn't like I was jealous or, like, I really was mad. But it was just kind of like my sister is pregnant with a baby. Like, she's trading me for somebody else. It's ridiculous to even say it out loud. But it kind of did feel like, wow, she's literally trading me for another human. Like, really? And the fact that it's a girl, like, really? Like, it was just kind of more, like, kind of scary because I knew that she was taking care of us, not just me, but she was taking care of my family. And obviously, it's selfish, and she did not need to do that. She shouldn't have been doing that. Like, it wasn't her responsibility to be doing that at all. But it was just a scary, like, situation. It was a scary thought. And also, like, is she not going to pay attention to, like, is she not going to come over here anymore? Like, I barely see her now. Am I not going to see her ever now? Like, she's going to start her own family. Like, what's going to happen, And, I mean, I had already had a niece prior. And, which I love her to death. She was like my little doll. I did, I had my fun with her. But, I had her so close and, nearby that I wasn't really like, oh, like, my brother's, trading me for this little girl, because I had him there every day, and it was just kind of like in addition to the family. But with my sister, it was kind of like, okay, I never see her, and she's going to start a family, and that's like, am I never going to see her, like, is she never going to have time to come around, I don't know. But, around this time, my family, my parents decide that they are going to move out of state. They tell me, we're moving to Washington, blah blah blah, we're moving to Washington. And I'm like, what? Like, Washington, where is that? Why are we moving there? And we're moving over here because it's too expensive to live in California. We're struggling. So we're going to move to Washington because there's better work opportunities there, and it's less expensive to live there. And, we have, better work opportunity, and we already have family in Washington that can help, help us settle down and whatnot, So that honestly breaks my heart into a million pieces. Not only was I thinking, my sister, she's having a family. I'm never going to see her. And then now I'm moving who knows how far. Where is this place that I've never been to or heard of? And I'm moving without my sister. Like, now I'm never going to see my sister. Like, and then my brother's also staying behind. Like, what is happening? My family is crumbling. Like, my whole world is just tearing apart. Like, what's happening? It was such a like stressful time for me. Like, am I gonna meet this baby? Like, am I gonna leave before this baby is born? Like, what is happening? It was so hard, honestly. And like, as my parents and even like my siblings didn't see, or we don't see, because I'm a parent now, we don't see that our actions and our, what's happening, how much of impact it makes on the kids, or what thoughts are going through their heads, like, yeah, I didn't have my sister living with me, but I had her less than 2 hours away from me, and then now I'm gonna move to another state where I'm never gonna see my sister. To me, my thoughts were, I'm never gonna see her. She, like, it's over. I lost my sister. I'm never gonna see her. I'm probably gonna see her when I'm an adult, when I can, travel by myself. It's as dramatic as it sounds. Like, that's literally like how I felt. I'm a child, and that's what's happening. But luckily, we haven't left yet when she's giving birth to my niece. And honestly, I was so excited to meet her. At this point, when I first saw her, it was amazing. I was, so happy, but yet so heartbroken, because I knew that I wasn't going to grow up with this little girl. I knew that this little girl wasn't going to grow up knowing her only aunt. Like, obviously she has other aunts, but like her only mom's sister, and that sucks. Like, it really does. And so many things that there's so many things that I didn't get to enjoy or didn't get to experience because I moved, because my family separated, because, my parents decided to move. And I know that it was for the best, but yet sometimes I think to myself, like, was it for the best? Like, was that move really for the best? Because, the best things didn't happen here, Obviously, if I didn't move here, then I wouldn't be where I am today with the person that I'm with today and the children that I have today, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it sucks that, with all that good comes a lot of sacrifice, And then sometimes I think, like, if we would have stayed there, what would have happened? What if horrible things would have happened? What if, I don't know. So I don't really question those things, but it kind of sucks that I, lost time. I lost a lot of experiences and a lot of, I lost a lot. I missed out on a lot of, growing up with my nieces, growing up with my siblings, and yeah, but we're sticking with the sister. We're sticking with sisters today. Anyway, so, whatever, my sister has her baby, I'm so thankful that I get to meet her. We move to to Washington. I'm starting middle school. So obviously, middle school is, different level of mentality, whatever, you start to worry more about kids or whatever. I feel like I would barely talk to her at this point. It was always kind of like just like a hi, how are you doing, blah blah blah. And I didn't have a phone, so I wouldn't be able to talk to her on my own. It was just kind of like when she would call my parents. And then my dad buys me my first phone, I think like at 13 years old. And that's when she kind of, I still don't really remember like us talking very much on the phone with my personal phone. But we would go to visit her. Like me and my mom, we would, go out there on like holidays or like summertime. We would go out to visit. And I remember the first time going out there, she would just like instigate me. What is the word? She would like investigate me. What are you doing at school? Like, who are you talking to? What are you doing? This and this and that. Like, and it was just kind of like overwhelming. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not doing anything. And, everybody had like MySpace and obviously, I wanted one, I wanted one. I wasn't allowed to have one. I mean, I understand, like, now, today, like, why I couldn't have one, obviously, but I was a kid, so I didn't, like, whatever. I wasn't allowed to have one, so, or was it Facebook? No, at this point. No, it was still MySpace, I believe. I wasn't allowed to have one. She would ransack my phone, question me, lecture me, and, I wish she would have come at me in a different perspective rather than already me being guilty when I wasn't guilty, But like I said, I really do appreciate it, and I don't, hold any grudges against her or anything. Like, I'm thankful for her being the way she was with me because of the person that I am morally today. Which I think it has a lot to do with, her advice. But, I wish that I would have had more of a sister bond, instead of like a mom bond, because I already had a mom. And, yeah, my mom would give me, advice and then tell me, stuff. And, the advice that moms give you, it's just, yeah, your mom's duties. And with my sister, it was like mom and sister duties, together and like times two, it was like, it was great, but then she would get like this mama bear energy, and then it would kind of like, oh, well, like, I don't want to tell her anything, or she's gonna get mad. And that's where she, I feel like that's where she kind of messed up. And that's where she kind of that's where she kind of had the, oh, well, I felt like we were close, but I didn't feel the same way. Obviously, I loved her to death. She was my sister. Like, I would do anything for her. But the bond that she had with me was different than the one that I had with her, because of how she would come at me. And I understand her because, today I have, 2 daughters and a son, and, my mind is constantly running on what are they going to do? Like, what are they doing? Like, it's a lot, and I understand. I really do understand her. And, that's, like, I get it now. Like, so when, your parent tells you, like, oh, you don't understand until you have kids, or blah, blah, blah. Like, you really don't until you have kids. Like, you really don't understand until you have your own damn kids. Like, you will be humbled, So, anyway, comes high school, I was a good kid. I didn't get into trouble. I didn't give my parents any trouble. Like, I wasn't ever in any trouble or anything. I was a good kid. I didn't like sneak out, or like, I was a good kid, and come high school, I meet my boyfriend, my husband now, and I tell her about it because, she's my sister, and, she, even though she lectures me like, my mother, she's still like my best friend, I tell her about it, or, whatever. We talk about it. Whatever. There's this picture of us at the park, and we're laying down on the grass side by side. She sees it. She calls my mom or me, I don't remember, super duper angry at me, like super duper angry at me. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, what is this picture? Like, you're laying on him, like that's not okay, and blah 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 blah, like, like, it just blows up, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And like, whatever, I tell her, no, I'm not laying on him. We're literally laying next to each other on the grass. Like, what are you talking about? She's like, no, like, I can clearly see you laying on top of him, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, sister, like, I'm not laying on top of him. Like, we're literally laying side by side on the freaking grass. Like, why would I post this picture knowing that you're going to see it? And, like, no, like, and I stood my ground. I was angry because she wasn't hearing me out, and, it was her, word against mine, and she wasn't backing down, and it was just what she said was right, and that was that. And, I knew that I was right, like, super angry, and I'm standing my ground, I'm standing on business. And I'm like, no, like, you're wrong, sister, like, no. And she's just super mad at me. She doesn't believe me. We don't even talk for like a month, or maybe even more, a little bit. And then we finally start talking again, and yeah, like, it's just, yeah. So then, fast forward, whatever, she's, always giving me, stuff about, being safe, being responsible, not being, like, not being, how can I say this? Not being, but anyway, fast forwarding to today, she is my best friend. I don't know what I would do without her. I don't know who I would talk to without her. She's literally like my go-to, and she deserves the world. She deserves happiness. She deserves nothing but happiness and love. I would do anything for her. You know, my love for her is unconditional. She is my best friend, my sister, my like a mother to me. You know, she means the world to me, and you know, I feel like sometimes people take her for granted, or like they use her, you know. She's very, very smart. She's a very smart woman, and I used to look up to her. I look up to her. But when I was little, I used to look up to her so much. I wanted to be just like her. I remember she had this pink baby fat flip phone, and I remember saying, like, when I grow up, I can't wait to have that phone and dress like her, and you know, have the confidence and the independence and motivation that she has. Like I looked up to her so much, and the fact that she could take care of her family, and you know, she did it all. You know, she's a great human being with a great heart. It's been enojona, like, you know. she has a temper on her, you know. She's a Scorpio, like, but she's great, and I love her, and you know, I would do anything for her, you know. So she's my best friend. She's great. She deserves the world, and she deserves the best. She deserves everything. I love her. I'm grateful for her. Even though sometimes we bump heads and she pisses me off, I will do anything for her. And, you know, she's my best friend, and I couldn't have asked for a better sister. I just wish that we had more time together, and I certainly would want more than anything that we lived at least in the same state, so that, you know, I can run to her whenever I needed someone, or, you know, she can run to me whenever she needed someone, without a doubt, you know, because that's something that really, you know, yeah. But anyway, point being, you have a sister, you know, appreciate them, love them, you know, whether it's, you know, whatever. You're blessed to have a sister. That's it for this episode on That's Crazy Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.